Oh no.
I knew you were going to do that.
Of course I was. Ta-da! I can be like this. Hi. Um, we like to be sunk at the bottom now. Oh god, okay, I've got on my side. Can't see. So this,
Hey, you're off short.
I'll be here. I'll be a knee. Can you see my blood? My leg.
What?
No, you can't. This is like the best start to one of our videos ever. Here, have my t-shirt. Look, it's bold. So this is our Satin Disney review.
Which is quite comfy.
Good, as long as you're comfortable.
Exactly.
So yeah, we are going to review our Disney holiday. Once I finish climbing all over the bed, have you any idea the lengths I've gone to set this up? The camera is perched on two Converse boxes with a, what was that? Was it for the plug box on top, with the shelves out of the fridge holding it in place because it was the only way to make it work. Because I couldn't hold it for the length of time I'm going to need it. So we are. Oh God, this is just what? Don't knock you flying. Business as usual. We are currently, as you can see, in Disney at Pop Century Resort. Our room is
I was showing them the Muriel.
oh, the Muriel. Oh, you're terrible, Muriel. We are in the 80s block. There's a 60s.
He's always in the 80s.
And so yeah, so this is the room. It's quite, it's fine. It's a nice room. It's comfortable.
It's nice, yeah.
It's nice, different. Yeah, it's unusual. Yeah. But you see, there's the thing. We were talking about this, and we were saying actually, we don't know that you need to pay for a bigger resort or a massive comfy room or anything, because actually you don't spend a lot of time here. We're only here this afternoon because one thing I would say as a Disney do and don't,
Avoid spring break.
don't come for spring break. It's chaos. We went for a bus at what time this morning?
6:15.
6:15.
Granted, we had literally just missed the 6:15 bus because we watched it drive off as we walked up to the bus.
Yeah, but the 6:15 bus drove off
Because it was full.
and there was enough people for a second bus already in the queue.
Yes.
And then that came and went,
And we didn't get on.
and we still didn't get on that one. So then the next one was then 20 to 7, which turned up, and by that time there was another 3 busloads of people.
And that was also a special bus that they'd had to rope
Lay
in
on.
because there were too many. Basically, the next official bus wasn't for about another 10 minutes at this point.
Yeah, I think that came about 5:30 in the end.
Yeah.
But it was a coach. It was basically a hire coach that they'd had to send in, and that driver had obviously never dropped off at Animal Kingdom before, because he gave us a delightful tour of the bus depot at Animal Kingdom. We went up the wrong lanes, we went down the wrong way. We eventually ended up parked just adjacent to what should have been our bus stop. We were piled off. We were like, oh, let's just go. So that was interesting. Also watching people with pushchairs, or as they say here, strollers, try and take their strollers on with them. Their strollers had to go in the thing underneath, and I was like, surely that was a no-brainer. It was going to go in the hold because this is a coach, a coach like you see on Coach Trip. There ain't room for your stroller.
With a teeny tiny aisle between the
Yeah,
chairs.
it's just like, and the buggies over here,
Immense.
I could fit him on, to be frank,
He's tried.
several times. So yes, so that was a brief detour about this morning. So yes, if you are thinking of coming to Disney, don't come for spring break. Everyone is here. Everyone. Before the park's official opening hours, just on resort guests alone, you've got enough people in there that the waits are up to. Well, the big rides are up to 3 hours. Even the rubbish rides that are normally like 5 or 10 minutes go up to like 45 minutes an hour. I would say it's like in exactly the same way as unless you absolutely got no choice or you're nuts, you wouldn't jump in the car on a decent August bank holiday and suddenly go to Great Yarmouth. You just wouldn't do it.
Or Alton Towers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know exactly how we avoid busy places on public holidays. that's what you want to do here, because every person that's eligible for a spring break has come to Disney.
And also bear in mind, like a lot of places, they stagger spring break.
Yeah, because we had it less so last week.
Yeah.
The weekend, the long weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, you couldn't move in the parks. I've never been here where it's been that busy. I can only imagine that's normally what it's like in sort of July, August, like full on summer holiday time. Again, which I've never attended. So yeah, spring break is something you do not, unless you can't help it. You know, don't book it at the same time.
And from what I gather, I think you're generally looking at end of March throughout most of April, depending on the areas.
It does seem to stretch on for an awfully long time. Of course, the other thing was there was lots of groups of, I suppose they must be college kids, but they just look so young.
It's because we're at that age.
Yeah, but maybe. They didn't look. What's college age here? 18 to 21. It's like our university age, right?
Yeah.
They don't look 18. I would have thought most of them were sort of 16 to 18.
But then that's the weird thing that you commented on the other day, that like sort of kids over here generally look younger than their age anyway.
Yeah. Is it because they can't legally start drinking that much older, so they stay younger longer?
Possibly.
Their livers are in better shape.
they have livers in some cases.
So yes, it's that comes from break. But we flew out here on United, and I have to say I was really pleased. Really pleased. I've not flown out to the States with anyone but Virgin before.
My legs were less pleased. I will just pop that in there.
Yeah, but that. I think we have more room in economy there than you're going to get in economy and Virgin, if I'm honest. Staff were great, food was good, service was fantastic.
Didn't you think they were like a American EasyJet?
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, that was my perception.
Cattle class only.
Yeah, and the service we got was way better. They were sound, to be fair. Even though it did take us most of the flight to realise that although they don't automatically put headphones on your seat, they are free. So we thought you had to pay for them. We were like, I'm not that bothered. So I was watching. What was I watching with the Batman Returns with the subtitles on, thinking I know the film well enough, it'll be fine. Then someone gave me a pair of headphones.
He was still mouthing along to all of them.
Yeah, but I was doing the voices. Why wouldn't you do the voices?
And the actions, which was fun.
Especially Michelle Pfeiffer's lines. I was doing those. But yes, no, good. It was a turbulent flight. It was a bit bumpy at places, but obviously that's nothing that.
Weirdly, I think the Atlantic leg actually wasn't too bad.
We changed to Newark.
Yeah, it was the Newark to Orlando leg that had the most turbulence, and again, even that wasn't too bad for the most part. But we had like a solid 10-minute patch of turbulence, I think it was, and it was like proper.
I think at one point I left the seat. And then, of course, me trying to be clever, we arrived in Newark, and you could see a couple of buildings and a couple of skyscrapers. I mean, literally like 3 skyscrapers. And Mark's like, "Is that New York?" And I'm like, "No, we're completely the wrong side. You wouldn't see that from here."
Of course, it's not.
And then we walked around the side of the building, and we were clearly just looking at it completely end on, because bam, there was the whole of Manhattan laid out before us. And I'm like, "Yeah, clearly this is actually. I don't trust me. I know nothing."
And then a staff member was asked, and yes, it was definitely Manhattan.
Well, I could see the Empire State Buildings. I knew it was, but I wasn't going to volunteer that information.
We got someone else to do it instead.
Yes, thanks. So that was fine. We had, it was supposed to be like a 2-hour layover. We arrived, and
I mean, technically it was, but it took us that long to
some
actually
staff
get
member
from one
was
place
like,
to the other.
"Yeah, you're late," and we were like, "What?" He said, "Yeah, you're going to have to go." And then we had to go through all the security, and of course, in Newark, it was round. It took forever to get through security. We had to pick up our luggage and then go back through as if we were brand new passengers, even though it was all an internal changeover. So that was, I mean, not difficult. There was just a lot of people. It was easy.
If we have to do something again, we must remember to take your laptop out of the laptop bag then.
Yes, because that would have been quicker.
Yeah.
Rather than sending it through and having our bag taken through my actually quite hot beardy security guard, but you know, there's worse things. So that was fine. I made a flight down here, got here, checked in, all sound lovely. We had, as part of the package, we've had $360 dining cash.
320 or 360. It's
Three
one or
something.
the other.
Which basically was just put in to our Apple's balance. So although it was dining money, we could spend it on anything where you could pay by the Apple Magic Band. So that was great. And on top of that, we were given a very snazzy, it's in the phone wallet, I can't get it out, show everyone. Very snazzy, limited edition for UK guests only.
He'll edit that in later.
I won't, I'm just uploading this straight as it is. UK guests only 50th anniversary Disney gift card. Which apparently lots of the American Disney fans are spitting chips over because they can't have one. You can have mine for $200. Just saying.
Because we're British and you're not.
Yeah. Parents. Unless you're actually descended from native originals, in which case not parents. So, so that's good. So we've spent all of that $500 odd gone. However, we got some gifts for people, which are all lined up over there. I won't put them on camera because I don't want anyone to watch this and see what we're bringing them back. I've just made it sound like we're bringing loads of stuff back for loads of people. I think it's like 2 people we're bringing gifts back for.
And they're not big gifts, but we're talking like pins and...
Yeah, just nice things. Things that we've liked.
Disney things.
Yeah, Disney things.
Ooh, it's suddenly...
It was the maid giving parts of the trolley full of towels. But that's the thing. So we got here on Monday we were still in the check-in hall because you were going in and getting coffee or something. I know I was stood by the door and you weren't quite with me as I was about to leave.
I was looking for a lighter.
He was looking for a lighter because he had to throw his light away.
No, as it turns out, I didn't have to throw my lighter away. I was made to throw my lighter away.
I'm sure in the UK and you still have to.
No, because I checked the flight rules.
Okay. Well, we'll see. So you were buying a lighter and I went, it was fine. It was lovely out. It was warm. It was humid. I went to step out the door and just this like special effects style rain just began to splatter from the heavens. Everyone dived for cover. A couple of young people ran around. Oh, well, that makes me sound old, doesn't it? A couple of young people ran around,
making a ruckus,
just getting wet in the rain. Like 10 years ago, that's what I used to do when I go to Disney. Not this time.
Yes, because apparently it only rains for about 20 minutes and then it all gets warm again and you're dry in 10.
This is how Florida rain works. Everyone will tell you. We've had Florida people tell us this week, so you can stop going on about that. The fact that this rain didn't stop for 7 hours. We went to the Magic Kingdom.
And how long did it take our clothing to dry?
3 days. We were absolutely piss-soaking wet. But I was still skipping around the Magic Kingdom like it didn't matter. Just, we then bought ponchos. Or was that the next day? I think the next day we bought ponchos.
Actually, no, I think it wasn't until we... When did we get...
Well, we bought them in the Magic Kingdom for when we came out of Pirates, so that was the next day.
Every day's a blur at the moment.
Kind of. Yeah, it's all like into one. We've bizarrely we've done something that I'd never done, but again I've never stayed on site, so it's not really been an option. Which is we've come back in the afternoons when the park's just too crowded and you can't get a line in lane for anything, and that costs extra money. We'll go into that a bit in a bit. So we have actually a couple of times taken a break in the afternoons and just come back to the room, just have a bit of a change of clothes, or just come back to eat on resort and then scoot off again or whatever between parks.
Yeah, I think we've only actually because it was only the first full day, so the Tuesday, where we literally did
open to
from
close,
start to close,
Magic Kingdom,
and then
which is 13 hours.
Yeah.
We were lucky. We were there a better part of 14 hours that day. We did a lot, and it's before the big crowds turned up for spring break, so we could do more. But even then, we were still queuing a good hour for stuff. It was still quite long.
But we did actually pretty much manage to smash everything we needed to, so I got the experience of the first time ride.
Okay. So, Magic Kingdom currently. It's a funny one because obviously I've known the Magic Kingdom for I worked out 30 years. My first trip to Disney it was 30 years ago now. Between 1992 and 2006, there wasn't a trip. because I was broke that entire time. I couldn't do it. But then since 2006, it's been every few years. I'm very familiar with the Magic Kingdom. It was really nice to just walk around. There's some stuff I've done that I've not done before. Things like where I've eaten and stuff like that. The Magic Kingdom's brilliant and wonderful, and that's, I guess, if you're not really massively familiar with the park, the Magic Kingdom is what you think of when you think about Disney. It's got the castle, it's got Small World, it's got Peter Pan, it's Space Mountain, it's Thunder Mountain, it's Splash Mountain, it's rides that end in Mountain.
It's that like colonial American parade street that you always see.
The parade came back. The parade came back while we were here. Thrilled to bits with that. So we did get to sit and watch the Fantasy Parade, and ended up following a YouTuber I follow down Main Street as he was finishing his video. So we appear in the last few seconds. Well, I appear from like there upwards.
No, you appear from about there.
Yeah, very briefly, just like my shining red head. You're on it. Because you're taller than me. Everyone's taller than me. So what do you think of the Magic Kingdom? Because it's your first time.
See, this is kind of weird because again, I'm not Disney. Like one of the things that sort of I will always say is that what are you doing? Is that what's that?
A Twitter.
Oh, okay.
Hello, Greedo's tweeted.
Is that basically I like Disney. I enjoy like Disney movies. I love some of the latest crop of Disney. Obviously, I've always loved Pixar, which is now part of Disney. But I'm not a Disney file. I genuinely and generally don't like classic Disney because obviously a lot of the animation is musicals, and I'm not a big fan of musicals. Blah 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 blah. So I kind of went into this thinking it's going to be a bit like, yeah, there'll be some fun stuff, and I'll get a kick out of some things, but a lot of it will just be obviously for proper Disney files. Magic Kingdom, I really liked it. I think that's something that Disney has done well across all of the parks. It's very apparent in sort of Magic Kingdom though, is that they just have this atmosphere about them. It's this. I think probably Magic Kingdom is the most sort of internally cohesive parks because it is literally kind of that sort of Americana throughout sort of the park, which will make more sense when we talk about things like Animal Kingdom or obviously the hot topic at the moment, of course, is Hollywood Studios for obvious reasons. So I think that's much more centralized. Obviously, I think my initial enjoyment of Magic Kingdom was very tempered by the fact that I was in absolute agony by about halfway through the day. Partly because of the flight, partly because of just doing the non-stop day, partly because I was wearing probably not the best footwear for walking around all day long because of the aforementioned rain. So that was a bit like, oh, can we just sit down for 5 minutes? But then of course you do, and you can't move again because everything's locked up. But no, really enjoyed it. Very cool.
Yeah. So Magic Kingdom is good. I think my big recommendation for everything, right, from here on in, this is my first time staying on a Disney resort. I can't imagine I'm going to come here again and not stay on a Disney resort unless there's a solid reason why, like money. A little bit money would be the reason. You don't have to. You don't. Like I say, from what we can establish. Yeah, sure. If you want to go to Contemporary, I know they're a lot bigger and done out. But you're not going to spend enough time in your room to really warrant putting cash into the room. I think you're better off if you've got cash to spend, unless you've just got money no object, in which case fuck me, carry on.
Yeah.
But I would say go to a cheaper resort and put that money into having Genie Plus
and I would
on several days.
And I would personally recommend that you try and get something like Art of Animation or
Pop Century
because you're connected to the Skyliner.
The Skyline makes everything so easy. The Skyline goes from Pop Century and Art of Animation. It goes over to
It's a shared hub, basically.
the Riviera Resort, and it's the only floating one that doesn't actually float. It's on stilts, but it's really simple to get around, and you can get it to Hollywood Studios and Epcot from here, and Yeah, we've been on it constantly. I mean,
we have looked for excuses to use the Skyliner. That's how good a mode of transport it actually is.
yeah, we went on a boat ride yesterday just so we could get the Skyliner home rather than a bus.
It was also to give me the boat experience. But
Yeah, which was nice. We went to boardwalk and all the rest of it. But yeah, so I just don't think you're going to need to massively splash out. This is sufficient.
I mean, the main thing to factor in is that, again, if you're looking at it from a cost perspective, you have to factor in that if you're staying off resort, you're presumably paying for like an Uber in and an Uber back every day.
Yeah, well, the resort I usually stay at, which I would use still for Universal 100%, over on International Drive, the Enclave Suites, it's something like $12 return for your bus to Disney, which then takes you to the Epcot Transportation Centre. You've then got to get from Epcot to wherever you're going, so you come into a central point in Disney and then have to ship out. So, I mean, see, that's the weird thing. I don't know how that would work. So if I get their bus here now, no, there must be from Epcot. From Epcot, there must be a bus that goes to Hollywood Studios. Only because from here at the resort, you go to the bus station for Epcot or for Hollywood Studios, and no bus is coming because there's a sign up and the lanes are all closed, and it says use the Skyliner. And when the Skyliner's down, they put on a bus. But what you couldn't do. Let's say I was in Enclave Suites today and I'd booked my park pass as Hollywood Studios. I can't then get into Epcot to get to the Skyliner across to Hollywood Studios. So if my transport unless the other off-site hotels and transport systems have had to change what they do, you see my logistical problem here?
Well, presumably now you would just get an Uber or whatever direct to the relevant park.
Absolutely, it would be the only option.
But the other thing, of course, that you factor in is that if you're a resort guest, you get an automatic 30-minute head start on the parks over non-guests.
Yeah. Proper extra magic hours haven't quite returned as they used to be, which was 2 hours for resort guests.
But of course, that was the other thing, which I think, didn't you say they were meant to be coming back like this week?
I'm not sure. I'll tell you honest.
But they are presumably going to come back at some point because Disney isn't stupid, and that's a good way to
I mean, at the minute, Magic Kingdom, it's got some long ass days actually.
Yeah, that's open to 11.
It's open at 8. It's 8 to 11. So yeah, we were in early and out late. But what you do find is once you get past about 8 p.m, things do quieten slightly because a lot of the families with the smaller children will watch the fireworks show then go. Even though we've noticed since the clocks changed at the weekend, it looks like the show is now 9 o'clock rather than 8 o'clock. Whether that will change as the nights get shorter, so 8 o'clock is darker again, I don't know.
But obviously the other big thing, and it's, again, this is more, I think probably more relevant when you're like not a 20-something or just fit generally, is that you have the ability when you're a resort guest to basically pop back to your hotel room for an afternoon siesta without it basically being an extra, couple of Uber trips that you don't have to factor in. It also makes, to a certain extent, park hopping a lot easier because you're not having to factor in a whole bunch of other stuff and logistics and this, that, and the other. It's just convenient all round.
Yeah. So what you want to do is you want to stay on resort for sure. I think there is a benefit. I know a lot of people are slagging it off and don't like it. And, it's not the fast pass system, whatever else. Here's the thing: doesn't matter how much you whinge or complain. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, people are coughing up for Genie Plus.
Yes, because you cannot get.
Because you can't. It was hard. Yeah, Rise of the Resistance. Right. So that's a. We'll come to that as a whole section because that's something else entirely. But if you look at Rise of the Resistance as a great example, and a lot of the big rides, to be fair, the Lightning Lane options open earlier for resort guests than they do for people off park. I don't know if there's a separate allocation that reopens up afterwards, but we were looking at Lightning Lanes, and anything you'd realistically spend the money on, you've got about half an hour from the window opening and they're gone. every once in a while there'll be some cancellations, something might pop up during the day. We were in the middle of the day and we had Smugglers Run Off pop up. He wasn't actually with me, so I was trying to desperately get a message to him and say, I can book Smugglers Run now. But by the time he got to me, they were gone. That was a minute and a half later, at like midday or something. So it's not going to go away. People can bitch about it all they want. Disney's a business. I know they've got a ton of money. I know they don't need to make more money. That is literally their job and their function and their raison d'etre. They're not actually here to entertain you. Get over yourselves. They are a business. They are an enormous global corporate conglomerate. They are going to be looking to waste that money, especially as the money they've not made for a long time with America being shut. I mean, they were shut for 5 months. Then they only had American tourists for another probably year. Do you know what I mean? It's their coffers are not where they ought to be from their point of view.
And it's safe to say that there was one guy we were talking to in Epcot, I think it was, who was Disney, just basically chatting away.
Oh, Tim.
Yes. Yeah. Who made a point that sort of said it was by all accounts very apparent that the Brits weren't at Disney. So
which just gave me images of sort of like customs at the gates going, the British are coming, the British are coming. Because it opened up November?
Yeah,
it was just before Christmas, yeah. So there was a good 18 months of nothing from Europe, really.
Yeah, because it's probably worth bearing in mind that I think probably for a lot of the Disney staff, UK and Europe are still fairly synonymous with each other.
Yeah, a lot of them can't tell Wales from Scotland. That's apparent in conversations we've had. Because pretty much everywhere we go, we are still getting the... Do you know, it's weird. I've not had it as much ever on any trip. This time around, I seem to be getting the, oh, I love your accent way more. I don't know if that's a resort thing. But now the other thing to think about when you think about sort of the lightning lanes and the premium rides and all that goes on at the moment that people moan about is, one, they're selling out, so they're not going to go away because they're doing their job. They're doing the job in raising revenue. It's not happening, forget it. You buy into it or go somewhere else.
About it,
or
it
go to Paris,
yeah.
go to Shanghai. It's not...
Go to Universal.
Go to Great Yarmouth. I don't care. But it's not going away. No, gone. My second point has completely gone.
About Genie Plus, about how it's not going away.
It works. I mean, the second thing is yeah. So I would suggest buy into it as a concept. We did it. We only used it one day, 2 days. Tell a lie, because one day we did it for. We just actually Mark did it. Mark just put us all on a Genie Plus for the day, so we could use Lightning Lane stuff. Just to help us get around, but we essentially did everything we wanted to do in 4 days. That's hardcore. That's a lot. And then we did it because on Sunday for our second trip to Galaxy's Edge, Rise of the Resistance was down on arrival. They had no ETA. We were in a massive queue. It was just getting longer and longer and longer. And believe me, before the park opens, that queue is at 3 hours. Right. So if you're off the property, your 3 hours was fucked, regardless. So we bought a Lightning Lane came up for the evening. We were like, we'll go and do everything else and we'll have a guaranteed spot this evening, which we did. And it was brilliant. I absolutely smashed the Lightning Lanes for the big stuff. If there's stuff, and if it really matters to you to do the bigger rides, just invest in Genie Plus. There are certain things that aren't part of Genie Plus, Rise of Resistance being one. I can't think what the others are.
Mickey's Runaway.
No, I think that's now in it. It wasn't.
Okay.
I think it's now in it. Just do a little bit of research because it does change. It's worth it. Ultimately, if you really want to do the cool rides and the good stuff, it is worth it. But you've got to be out on, be at the park for road drop. Be there 15 minutes before. Be on that first bus. Be on that Skyliner. The Skyliner queue. I mean, thankfully, because the Skyliner's cable cars, it constantly moves. So you move through it fairly quickly. But the cable car queue between 7 a.m. and 7:15 goes from 3 people in front of you to probably about 200 people in front of you, I would say, because we were right around the lake. Again, 15 minutes we were on. But
The other reason we love Skyliner is because it is just that constant carousel.
yeah.
You know, yes, you'll see a long queue, but it is constantly moving.
Yeah, it's rare it stops. So it's rare it stops. It's not you go when it stops. It does. By the way, apologies for the fact that we are only taking up half the screen, but I've had so much dicking about on the camera, I really can't be fucked to move it.
There we go.
There we go. Hurrah! Yeah, so that's my biggest recommendation for Disney post-COVID. That was what I was going to say about Lightning Lanes. The other thing, people bitch about this whole thing. Disney were talking about this 5-6 years ago. They just didn't have an excuse to implement it without really pissing people off. And COVID gave it to them because there was a break in service and they could just go, there we go, we're going to do this. It's not like it was a response to COVID. It wasn't. It was coming. It was always coming. So is it a bit of a pain in the ass because it's slightly harder than the old Fastpass system? Only in as much as it costs you more, because it's $15 per person per day to go Genie Plus. That will then work in all parks.
Yeah.
So you can't park hop till 2 currently. That would change as we get further and further away from the heart of the pandemic. I think again, maybe not. Maybe it's a good way for them to control stuff. So maybe it won't. But I doubt, if you can't afford it every day, be strategic, pick your park, pick your ride. If you are into Star Wars, even vaguely, definitely do it for Galaxy's Edge. And rope drop rise, we'll come to Galaxy's Edge, a separate entity.
This is going to be a very long video.
It already is. It's already like half an hour. Animal Kingdom. Let's talk Animal Kingdom. Right, you rope drop Animal Kingdom.
For one ride.
You go straight to Flight of Passage. Right? Now this morning, the queues were ridiculous. Again, it's the spring break thing, right? Last week, we rope dropped. We got through relatively quickly. We were on the second bus out. We weren't on the first bus out. We were on the second bus out.
A bit like today, effectively.
Yeah, kinda, yeah. And we were still on and off Rise, and then managed to get round and do the Navi River, all before about 9:30, probably. And
I think it was only about a half hour wait.
And that's your main one's done. So the other big ride there is closed for refurbishment, which is the Expedition Everest roller coaster. So that again, if we went straight over there, we'll just queue for whatever it takes, and it was a 90-minute queue, we would still before lunch have done the 3 major rides. We had a hoot though with our safari. I think if you check the channel, there's I've got it somewhere else. I think on Disney Day 2 it'll be.
Shout out again to Miles.
Miles was amazing. Our driver on the safari. The bus next to us broke down, which was just hilarious. I'm kind of wrong, but yeah, Miles was cool. We had like the best driver. But yeah, Animal Kingdom's odd. My best advice at the moment is don't go to Kite Tales. Do not bother.
But do go to was it Feathered Friends?
Feathered Friends is awesome.
Yeah.
Feathered Friends is like trained birds. Lots of exotic birds and parrots and an owl and a stork and but it's very humorous and it's very nicely done. But the thing with Pandora is you want to go back there in the evening. Now, the queues may in previous visits I've noticed the queues massively go down in the evening because the Tree of Life shows on like every 15 minutes, so a lot of people try and catch that. It hasn't this time around again. Spring break, but Pandora at night is
its own entity,
infinitely more of an experience than Pandora during the day. But I mean, to the point where I would almost go, I wouldn't bother going till night. But if you want Flight of Passage, you've got to rope drop and go straight there. You will seem to be joining a massive never-ending line, but it will move quite quickly. We were actually in line for an hour and a half this morning, but it did not feel like it because we were dragged around the park. And we were almost in Africa at one point, and then we were somewhere. Then we were in a cave. It it didn't take long at all. Animal Kingdom's good fun. It's nice. There is good. It's unusual. There is stuff to do. I wouldn't ever have it as my favourite park. If anywhere on the line I've got to miss something, Animal Kingdom would probably be the one I'd miss. You know, as much as it would pay me to miss Flight of Passage, because that's just a phenomenal ride. What we've also done with Flight of Passage, we've done it 3 times this holiday, and there's 3 rows, and we've done top, middle, and bottom. The bottom, I think, didn't feel anything like the other 2. It wasn't. I didn't get half the sensation and the thrill of the ride.
Really?
Yeah, this morning.
Are you sure you weren't just desensitised to it?
No, I'm fairly sure. It's also a little bit out of focus for me sometimes. That might be to do with my lenses and being compatible with being on the bottom rung.
And also possibly being completely shattered.
Yeah, there was that. I did fall asleep in the Lion King show.
When he says fall asleep in the Lion King show, he fell asleep for the Lion King show.
I remember a couple of lines of Be Prepared where I went,
The show's about half an hour.
Is it really?
I've no idea.
Oh, God.
It felt a lot longer.
I knew you wouldn't like it. I knew it wasn't going to be your thing. But, you know, it was either that or literally do Flight of Passage and get up at 5:30 to do Flight of Passage and come back to the room. You're just like, well, let's do stuff while we're there. So then you've got Epcot.
Going back to Animal Kingdom,
Okay.
because obviously I was, again, first time impressions. Animal Kingdom, I love Animal Kingdom as a park. Ironically, in terms of Paul saying that I'd be the one that he would drop, for me, actually, it's going to be the one we'll talk about next, which is Epcot, is the one I would drop if I had to. I mean, I wouldn't want to drop any of them.
No. But gun to your head, you know.
Yes, would be Epcot for me. But the thing with Animal Kingdom is it kind of, when I was saying with the Magic Kingdom that it's like as a park it's much more cohesive. Animal Kingdom is really where you start to see sort of like the zoning, because you have the Pandora zone, you have the Africa zone, you have the Asia zone, you have the dinosaur bit. So it's very much like sort of themed parks within a park. And I think that's why I like Animal Kingdom, is that obviously it's massively Disneyfied, but especially when you're walking around like Africa, because it's based around sort of Harambe, you could actually genuinely feel, if it wasn't for the hordes of tourists, that you were actually sort of in like an African port city kind of thing. It's again, the theming of it is absolutely spot on. So there's always a lot to kind of look at with Animal Kingdom, but it is very much a bit like going on a safari or just going on like an adventure holiday, where you're not necessarily just like sunbathing or going to a theme, but like a roller coaster park or anything like that. But that's, I think, why I like it as well, because it is just that kind of atmosphere to it.
Yeah. So Epcot. I like Epcot. Epcot's got a lot coming. That's the thing. You've got the Tron ride coming to Magic Kingdom. Hopefully open by the time we get back. Even though looking at the state of construction as we were on the People Mover,
It'll be a miracle.
that's got a lot to do. Or I'm massively misunderstanding this ride. Epcot has Guardians of the Galaxy, which I've seen, bits and pieces of the making of, and the ride system.
Well, it has a large building that will be Guardians. It doesn't actually have Guardians of the Galaxy at the moment.
It's got 2 large buildings that are connected by a corridor. This ride's going to be immense. I'm really intrigued. Can't wait to get on it. We saw the new Epcot show, Harmonious, which is lovely.
We saw half of
We
the
saw
show.
bits of it. We basically, the first place we stood had a lovely view. There's what we could be calling it the Stargate, because in the middle of the lake it looks like the Stargate, right? And they project onto water in it for the entire show. And it's kind of, from what I can gather, from what we saw and what other people have said to us, basically the point of the show. So the fact that there are places around the lake where you cannot see into the Stargate seems completely pointless. So what we saw was some pretty lights, heard some lovely music, some moving water, and lots of fireworks. And don't get me wrong, that was nice. But it was all a bit like,
Fair.
So we talked. We were going to watch it last night. We were just too tired. We We did Soaring, love Soaring. Soaring's cool as fuck. We went around the World Showcase. We did Frozen. Frozen's always a bit of a what again? This is where the Skyliner comes in for us because we can skyline into the back of Epcot, and we are right by the Ratatouille, which is one of the newest rides.
It is absolutely worth doing.
It's a hoot. Yeah.
It's a hoot and a holler.
It's a hoot. And cheesy. So yeah, the Ratatouille rides, and I don't know what you'd call it. Trackless. Trackless rides.
It is a trackless ride.
So you sit in like a little mouse, and you're shrunk down to mouse size, and then you go on an adventure with Remy through Gusteau's restaurant. I won't give any more spoilers than that, but you're in a car that just goes off on its own. You're not on any track or anything, that technology absolutely astounds me. But it's quite fun at the end when like there's no people. These little empty cars that look like mice just travelling along and just go off to the next destination. Like, so that's good. But the lines get crazy instantly. The first time we did it, we more or less walked straight on, which was great. The second time, which was yesterday, which was peak spring break weekend, and we arrived as early as previously and still walked into about an hour and 20-minute queue that was up to 3 hours by the time we came out of the ride. And that was, at that point, the park had barely opened. It was just like, Jesus. And then everything was like it all day yesterday. Test Stranding dropped down below 90 minutes. I think the thing with Epcot is there's a lot of development going on. So obviously you've got, the aforementioned Guardians of the Galaxy coming. Over that bottom corner is all sort of showing off. The middle section that you can see into. There we go. That you can see into. With from the monorail, which is going to be Moana and something. There's two things going there. Anyway, definitely Moana, like a water feature thing. But at the minute, it's just basically mud and diggers. So yeah, you've got Soaring, you've got the land. We had dinner at the Coral Reef, which was nice. Big shout out to Janelle, our server, because she was awesome too.
Do you know what was amazing? Do you know what taught me how the whole bill and tipping system works?
I know,
it's very different from us in the UK.
Unnecessarily complicated.
Yeah.
You can't just leave 20 quid on the table anymore. You have to write that you've done that on the receipt and state you've done it in cash. Otherwise, it's a tax thing or something. I don't.
Well, we're not sure why you have to do it this way, but basically, you get your bill and then you do, and it's also, although the overall system is the same, every restaurant seems to have its own slight variation on how the process works. So, like for the next restaurant we went to, which was Maria Renetos, which is amazing. I love that. You literally slipped your card in and they went off and came back with a slip. The third restaurant, which will deserve its own mention, again, completely different as well. And also, a hot tip, if you're going out as a group, and so you're splitting the bill, split the bill without the tip because of the way that they process payments. It makes it massively complicated if, like we were doing the UK, where you think, right, well there's my 60 quid, which is my 40 quid share plus a 20 quid tip or whatever it might be, because they'll go off with that, but they basically process the tip after they've processed the payment, but they still process it, and that's I think the thing that throws a lot of Brit visitors, because we literally just go, right, well there's my card, and then like you say, you leave the 20 quid tip on the table and walk off.
Not the done thing. Not the done thing. So Space 220 restaurant, that is epic. It's expensive, but it's epic.
It's one of those set menu ones. It's for Disney, what I'd probably call high end.
Yeah, it was $80 a person.
Yeah.
But the food was great. The chocolate mousse defeated me. I couldn't finish it.
You heard it here first, folks.
It was a chocolate mousse, but they called it chocolate cheesecake. But it was like 4 different types of chocolate.
The lemon mousse, however, was amazing. and they did like a thing like the Rings of Saturn type concoction out of white chocolate, which they just kind of rested on the top and like coloured bits of it, just sublime.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And they do amazing mocktails, but bear in mind you will be charged extra for mocktails and cocktails if you go there.
Yeah, and the cocktails are like $40. It ain't cheap, kids.
Yeah.
But it's worth it if you can get in there as your treat. If you're gonna splash out on one expensive meal, Space 220 is definitely the one to go for right now.
It is an experience.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So then we've also spent some time at Disney Springs, which has been nice. We were on Saturday because we thought, the parks will be mad, we'll go shopping. Fuck me sideways with a chainsaw.
That's what everyone else thought as well, it turns out.
There must have been nobody in the park. We must have been walking onto every ride because you could not move at Disney Springs. World of Disney, how I did not stab someone, I do not know.
Mark didn't stab someone, I didn't know.
Well, funny enough, Mark and Andrew, we bumped into over there. We weren't actually seeing them that day in theory because they were doing laundry and stuff. But we walked through the shop and there they were. Andrew's always so bright, love him. So he's like bouncing around. Mark, the face. Jesus Christ. I knew he wasn't happy the minute he walked up to me. I thought, God, his face is how I feel. Yeah, how we got through that whole, and it just everywhere was rammed. But we did get to do a bit of shopping. You got your cap, didn't you?
Yes.
We got a couple of gifts. That's where we bought the gifts. Did we eat that? Oh yeah, Maria and Enzo's. Maria and Enzo's again. We had another amazing server, Ali. Ali was our server at Maria and Enzo's.
Yeah, who was a huge,
she's a delight, an absolute
huge
delight.
Good Place fan, and I was wearing my
Good Place
Holy Forking Shirt Balls Good Place T-shirt, which he immediately clocked. And then again, she was very much. Was she Tennessee?
Texas. She was from.
Texas.
Yeah. She was from
So basically, we had a brilliant conversation about how she is absolutely a complete gutter mouth most of the time, which is why one of the reasons why she loves a Good Place, because it's effectively she's had to train herself, obviously being Disney, and
to not
generally to not swear. So she kind of does Good Placeisms instead. But again, she was an absolute we got to have a fascinating conversation with her about, because she basically, I think she was one that came through the Disney
college
graduate
program. Yeah.
So again, we make jokes about the cult of Disney, but they're not really jokes. But yeah, Ali, it was great to actually have a conversation with Ali because she's kind of been through that process, and like she says herself, it's just like, yes, at the time, it's young, brilliant, but she got to a stage where she just has to kind of move away from that side of things.
Yeah, I think being a through and through Disney person was not for her long term. Being on the periphery, I think, is more her personality, which is fine. It's not for everyone.
Also, again, hot tip from Maria. Basically, Maria and Enzo's, if you haven't been, it's essentially 1930s, 1940s Art Deco.
It's supposed to be like an airport, isn't it?
Yeah. So like the architecture and the fixtures and fittings are gorgeous. I mean, I love Art Deco anyway. But it's basically, as the name would suggest, it's an Italian restaurant. Don't do what we did, which is between us, order the two entrees, which are designed for two people. So we.
Are they actually designed for two people?
Well, as in, to be fair, I mean, we're talking America, but Ali herself said, when she gets guests to come in and sort of say, we want to have a dish that we can split between two people. There are two dishes that she always recommends.
He ordered one, I ordered the other.
Yeah.
I've never been beaten by a lasagna before in my life. There's about a third of it left. I very nearly was like, can I box this up? But because it was gorgeous. It was absolutely wonderful. I'd been there before for lunch with Alan, and the lunches were quite filling. But I managed to finish my lunch. I had like a carbonara thing. This bloats. Actually, interestingly, they probably still Alan's recipes. To be fair.
Also, we still had desserts.
Did we? Did I? I think I did. I did. I didn't.
Oh yes, because I had tiramisu and you didn't.
Yeah, and I just sat there going,
kill me now.
Yeah, pretty much. So Disney Springs is good fun. There's some cool stuff there. There was a cinema. We were talking about going to see the Batman there, but timings just didn't really work out at the end. And I was bloaty with lasagna. I was like, I don't want to sit in the cinema. I'd rather just go and flake out on a bed naked. So I can just let my stomach just go bleh. So that's what we did. And last but not least, Hollywood Studios.
I will say as well, because I obviously we're talking about Epcot, because
We went to Disney Springs.
no, before that.
Okay.
You never actually asked me what my sort of what I thought of Epcot because of the whole.
No, you said it was your least favourite. I thought that was probably enough.
But you never actually went into Dubai. But
It doesn't
I will say, what do you mean it doesn't matter?
You don't like it. I'll tell you why.
Okay. Carry on.
Fine. So go on, tell me why you don't like it.
Carry on.
Oh, for God's sake. Stop being a child and tell people you don't like it.
Carry on.
You see what I have to fucking put up with? Hollywood Studios. Right, so main new thing at Hollywood Studios, because I'm treating a certain thing as a separate entity, because it is, for me was Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Mine Train, which is the cutest ride you will ever go on. It's an absolute scream. We broke the pre-show the first time we went on it. They're supposed to
Says we, he means me.
Yeah, because basically every time you go near something, it tends to just not work. You broke the pre-show for Avatar as well. Even though we think that was a little boy. Oh,
What do you mean we think? We know that was a little boy because it was his little icon that wouldn't light up because he wasn't standing on it properly.
At which point I scream over my shoulder, "Sort your life out, number 12." Turn around, he's like 4.
He's literally like this high.
he was barely a toddler. I was like, oh, great.
I think he cried.
Good. But Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Mine Train are supposed to have this whole like preamble that gets you into the story of what you're going to go through on the ride. And we just got a voiceover going, "Hi guys, there's been a change of plan. Goofy's kind of trashed his train today, so you can't watch the cartoons, but it's okay. We're just going to put you straight on your train."
And basically told us essentially what happened
What the
in the
pre-show.
pre-show.
But the thing is, because we'd never been on it, we didn't know this, but Andrew was with us, because Mark wasn't feeling great, so he'd gone back. Andrew's like, "Oh, that's the story of the pre-show. I think the pre-show must be broken." We walked into the next room, and what should have been a lovely, beautiful screen had just this big hole in it. And he's like, "Yeah, this is what happens during the pre-show. It's not working."
It's also worth bearing in mind as well that we it's probably one of the first lines where we seem to like stand there for absolutely ages and ages and ages, and then there's suddenly this massive movement. So what we basically happened is they completely forgot there were people in the standby queue. We were just shuttling people through on the lightning lane for ages, and it just went.
And then they moved literally
shit.
about 200 people.
Yeah.
Because there's more than one room, so it can't have been that the pre-show broken thing was holding everyone up. Excuse me. Here we go. That was the same day we walked straight onto Avatar for no reason, because we were having an eye at whether or not we got in this 80-minute queue. We were like, "Oh, it's Friday night. Let's just get in the queue. It'll be fine."
But was this after we'd come out of? No, it can't have been.
I think it might be a different day.
Yeah.
And it was the whole point of going back to Pandora at night. So there we were, about to get in this 80-minute queue. We were at the point where you join the standby queue. And this very lovely lady, whose name I didn't catch, if I'm honest, who was running VIP Disney tours. So she's a cast member who specialises in not just like paid groups. This is like private.
FYI, for those of you like me who aren't Disney people, cast members is staff.
Yeah. Anyone who works for Disney, you're a cast member, because it's all a show. She said, "Oh, are you thinking of joining the queue?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Would you like to go in the lightning lane?" And I was like, "Yeah."
I was when he bit her hand off.
Yeah, I mean, literally bit her hand off. I've still got bits of it in my teeth. And I wasn't really sure what was going on, and she explained then that she was taking. There's a family on a VIP tour. It looked like there was 5 of them.
Yeah.
Mum and dad, 3 kids.
I clocked
2 or 3
2
kids. 2 or 3 kids. And so they had 5 spaces on the ride, because it was basically they had as a VIP tour they get a section of, it must have been mum, dad and, no, I don't know,
Perhaps it's just a number of adults/kids.
Oh, you know what it is? They get a thing to themselves, and you get 2 lots of 8, don't you? So the other lot of 8 would have been no. I don't know. Anyway, they had 5 spaces to give
Not
away.
important to the story.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to the story. They had 5 spaces to give away. So we took 3 of them. Overhearing the conversation, this other guy, they were from
Chile.
Chile, that was it. This other guy kind of overheard it. He kind of drifted over and was like, "Oh, are you giving out lightning lanes?" And she was like, "Yes, I've got space for 2 more." So they came with us. So there was us 2, Andrew and this newlyweds from Chile.
Which is what we had out in the queue. That literally, they were on their honeymoon.
Yeah, they got married like a week before. Gifted these lightning lanes. So this 80-minute queue for Avatar, we bypassed entirely and were put on the ride. So always eternally grateful to that family. We kept sort of shouting thank you over to them, and they were like, "Oh," I think they were getting to the point where they were like, "Oh, just shut up about it." Yeah, but I don't think they quite understand what it meant to us. Well, me and Andrew, well, perhaps. But that was immense. Absolutely awesome. But yeah, Hollywood Studios, Mickey and Minnie's. We haven't been on Tower of Terror this time around.
No.
Because the queue's been like 2 hours most of the time, and I'm like, I like Tower of Terror.
Constantly.
I like Tower of Terror, but I'm not going to queue for 2 hours for it. It's just, I'd rather go on other stuff and do other bits and pieces. And then, of course, you have Galaxy's Edge, which is just phenomenal. I could come here and just spend all day, every day, sat in Galaxy's Edge. Not even going on the rides, just walking around and just living Star Wars.
He could also record another video that's just Galaxy's Edge that would still be longer than this one is.
Probably. And this one's got up to nearly an hour.
Yeah. We will get like 3 people watching this.
I know. No one's going to watch it for this long. No one's going to get to this bit. Should we stop and do Galaxy's Edge as a separate video?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, sod it. If you want Galaxy's Edge, you've got to come back for the next one.